At 60 years old, Shania Twain finally said the name she had carried quietly for most of her life. It wasn't a scandal, an affair, or a headline-grabbing secret. It was something far more personal. In a recent interview, she admitted that long before the fame, the records, and the reinventions, one voice changed everything for her: Ricky Nelson. And once she explained why, fans realized this truth had been hiding behind her success all along. Shania Twain was born Eileen Regina Edwards on August 28, 1965, in Windsor, Ontario, but her real story was forged in the harsh realities of Timmins. Poverty was not an idea in her childhood. It was daily life. There were nights she went hungry, days she wore secondhand clothes, and moments when survival felt uncertain. Yet even then, music gave her something rare, a sense of hope that refused to disappear. As a child, she sang wherever she could: local clubs, bars, anywhere that would let her perform, even though she was far too young to be there. She wasn't chasing fame. She was helping keep her family afloat. Music wasn't a dream, it was a lifeline. And through the flicker of a small television in her living room, one artist reached her in a way she couldn't explain at the time. Ricky Nelson's voice felt different, smooth, warm, comforting. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, Shania watched him perform and felt something spark inside her. She didn't understand fame or legacies yet, but she understood feeling, and Ricky Nelson made her feel safe, inspired, and seen. It was the first time she thought, "I want to do that. I want to make people feel something." Then life took everything from her. At just 21 years old, Shania lost both of her parents in a sudden car accident. Overnight, she became the guardian of her younger siblings. Her dreams were put on hold as responsibility took over. She took a steady job singing at Ontario's Deerhurst Resort, not to chase stardom, but to protect her family. It was a sacrifice few ever see behind the success. Her break finally came in the early 1990s when she signed with Mercury Records and adopted the name Shania, meaning "on my way" in Ojibwe. It was more than a name change. It was a declaration. Her debut album gained modest attention, but it led to a phone call that would change her life forever. Producer Robert John "Mutt" Lang heard her voice and knew she was different. What followed were months of long phone conversations, sharing ideas, fears, and dreams. When they finally met in person at Nashville's Fan Fair in 1993, the connection was undeniable. They married later that year, and together they created a sound that shattered expectations. The Woman in Me transformed Shania into a rising force, blending country, pop, and rock in ways the genre had never fully embraced. But it was Come On Over that made her unstoppable. Released in 1997, it became the best-selling studio album by a female artist in history. Shania Twain wasn't just famous, she was everywhere. Her confidence, fashion, and voice empowered millions. Yet behind the scenes, the pressure was immense. Fame was loud, but fear was quiet, and it never left her. Then came the fall. Her marriage collapsed after a devastating betrayal involving her closest friend. Soon after, Lyme disease and dysphonia nearly stole her voice. For an artist whose identity lived in sound, it felt like losing herself entirely. There were years when she couldn't sing, years when she wondered if her career was over. But in those silent moments, she went back to the beginning. She went back to Ricky Nelson. Listening to his music again reminded her of the little girl who believed in melody when life was unbearable. As she matured, she began to understand his genius even more deeply. Ricky Nelson wasn't just a teen idol. He was a quiet pioneer, blending rock, country, and pop long before it was celebrated. He paid a price for it too, rejected by audiences when he evolved, misunderstood until the end. That truth stayed with her. She saw how easily the world could turn on artists who dared to grow. She carried that lesson into her own career, even when critics questioned her sound. And when illness nearly ended her ability to sing, Ricky's voice reminded her why she fought to come back. Her return wasn't about charts anymore. It was about truth. Albums, tours, Las Vegas residencies, and documentaries followed, but so did peace. She rebuilt her voice. She rebuilt her life. She found love again, and she found clarity. At 60, she finally felt free enough to say it out loud. Ricky Nelson wasn't just an influence. He was a guiding light. His music shaped her instincts, her courage, and her willingness to cross boundaries. He helped ignite the fire that carried her out of poverty and into history. She never met him. He died tragically in 1985, but his legacy lives inside her songs, her risks, and her resilience. In finally telling this truth, Shania Twain didn't reveal a scandal. She revealed a soul connection that quietly guided her entire journey. Some stories don't scream for attention. They wait, and when they're finally told, they explain everything. What part of Shania Twain's journey and Ricky Nelson's influence moved you the most?